They left her to burn in the prairie fire. Now she's back to claim what's hers. The prairie stretched far beyond the horizon, golden grass moving like waves under a soft red sunset. On this distant frontier world, people still lived like old cowboys, even though advanced technology quietly existed around them. Solar windmills turned slowly beside wooden barns. Hover horses grazed calmly while small drones floated overhead, checking fences and scanning for danger. Ilara walked along a narrow path near her ranch, her boots pressing into dry soil. She moved with quiet confidence, but her eyes held a deep sadness. The ranch had once belonged to her parents. After they passed away, she worked alone to keep it alive. Every fence she repaired, every crop she planted, and every animal she cared for felt like a promise she refused to break. Most colonists respected her hard work, but some powerful ranchers saw her as a problem. They owned large parts of the prairie and controlled the colony council. They preferred people who followed their rules without asking questions. Ilara was not like that. She noticed things others ignored. For months, strange machines had been arriving at night near the hills behind her land. Heavy equipment buried underground, hidden from public maps. Energy readings from her old scanner showed unusual spikes. When she asked the council about it, they smiled politely and told her not to worry. But she did worry. One evening, she rode toward town on her hover horse, a sleek animal-shaped machine mixed with organic muscle and metal. The wind pushed against her dark hair as she traveled. Town lights flickered ahead, warm and inviting, yet something felt wrong. Inside the local saloon, voices dropped when she entered. Conversations slowed. She noticed several council members sitting together at a corner table. They watched her carefully. Ilara ordered water and sat quietly, listening. She overheard fragments of conversation about new land transfers and expansion projects. Her name came up once, followed by silence. A rancher she once trusted avoided her eyes. That hurt more than she expected. Later that night, she returned home with unease in her chest. The sky looked strange, clouds glowing faintly red from distant lightning storms. The wind carried heat. She checked her scanners again. Energy levels beneath the hills had increased dangerously. "Something is wrong," she whispered. She sent a message to the council requesting an emergency inspection. No reply came. Hours passed. The wind grew stronger. Then she saw it, a thin line of fire far away, moving fast through the grass. At first it looked small, but within minutes it spread wide, driven by unnatural gusts of wind. Flames jumped like living creatures, racing toward her ranch. Ilara sprang into action. She activated fire barriers and turned on irrigation systems. Water sprayed across the fields, but the fire moved too quickly. It was not behaving like a natural wildfire. She rushed to release her animals, guiding them towards safer ground. Smoke filled the air, making it hard to breathe. Heat burned against her skin. A vehicle approached through the smoke, a heavy transport truck. Relief filled her for a moment. Maybe help had arrived. 3 men stepped out. Their faces were hidden by masks against the smoke, but she recognized their voices, council ranchers. "We came to help," one said. She hesitated but nodded. Together they moved toward the barn where valuable equipment was stored. Flames surrounded the area. Inside the barn, the air felt heavy and hot. One of the men moved behind her quietly. She turned just as the doors slammed shut. Metal locks clicked. "What are you doing?" she shouted. Their shapes disappeared through the smoke outside. One voice answered coldly through the door. "It was never personal. The land is needed." Fear hit her like ice. They had planned this. The fire roared louder, eating through wood and metal. Smoke filled her lungs. She tried to force the doors open, but they would not move. Heat grew unbearable. For a moment, anger replaced fear. She refused to die like this. She searched quickly and found an old emergency hatch beneath the floor, half hidden by equipment. Flames licked across the ceiling as she pulled it open. Beneath was a narrow maintenance tunnel used long ago. She dropped inside just as part of the roof collapsed. Darkness swallowed her. The tunnel shook as fire passed above. She crawled forward, coughing and dizzy. Eventually her strength faded. The last thing she saw was faint light ahead before everything went black. Days later, a scavenger ship passed over the burned prairie. The crew scanned for salvage but detected a weak life signal underground. Curious, they dug through ash and metal until they found her. She was barely alive. The crew brought her aboard. Their ship was rough and worn, filled with spare parts and strange technology. Among them was an older man known simply as Rowan, a retired space cowboy who had seen many worlds burn and rebuild. Ilara remained unconscious for weeks while healing machines repaired her injuries. When she finally opened her eyes, pain reminded her of what happened. Memories of betrayal hit harder than the fire. Rowan explained where she was and how they found her. He spoke gently, without pity. "You survived for a reason," he said. She learned the colony had declared her dead. Her land was already being reassigned. At first she felt broken. Everything she loved had been taken. But slowly, anger changed into determination. She began helping the crew repair systems, learning new skills and technologies. Rowan taught her how to pilot small ships and read hidden signals. The crew treated her like family, not a victim. Years passed quietly. Ilara grew stronger, her calm presence hiding deep fire inside. She never forgot the prairie or the betrayal, but she also learned patience. One morning, standing at the ship's window, she watched a distant star that marked the direction of her old home. The time had come. "I'm going back," she said. Rowan nodded as if he had known all along. When her ship landed near the colony, she felt both fear and peace. The prairie looked different. New structures stood where her ranch once lived. Fences cut across land that used to be open. She walked up a hill overlooking the valley. Wind moved through tall grass, carrying memories with it. Her name had been erased. Her home had been stolen, but she was alive, and she had returned. She stood there until sunset, watching lights appear one by one across the colony. The fire that once tried to destroy her now lived quietly inside her, not as rage but as purpose. They thought she was gone forever. They were wrong. The prairie looked peaceful from a distance, but Ilara knew peace could be an illusion. She stood on the hill as morning light spread across the valley. New fences divided land that once belonged to many small ranchers. Large towers stood near the hills where her family's barn had once been. The wind carried dust and memories. She pulled her coat tighter and walked toward town. Ilara did not enter openly. Years of survival had taught her patience. She wore a wide hat that shadowed her face and used a new name when speaking to strangers. Most people did not recognize her. To them, she was just another traveler passing through. The town felt heavier than she remembered. Shops were quieter. People spoke in low voices as if afraid someone might hear them. A large screen near the square displayed announcements from the council. New land agreements, new rules, new taxes. Ilara watched silently. A farmer struggled with a broken irrigation unit near the edge of town. Without thinking, she walked over and helped him repair it. Her hands moved with confidence, connecting wires and adjusting sensors. Water flowed again, and the farmer's face filled with relief. "You saved my crops," he said. She only nodded and walked away before he could ask her name. That became her pattern. She moved through the colony quietly, helping where she could, fixing a drone, guiding lost cattle back home, repairing old solar panels. People began whispering about a mysterious rider who appeared during trouble and vanished afterward. Some called her the Ghost Rider. Ilara did not try to stop the rumors. They helped her stay hidden. One evening, she entered the saloon where she once sat years ago. The smell of food and wood smoke felt familiar, but something inside her remained distant. She sat at a corner table, listening. Council members laughed loudly at another table. Their clothes were expensive, their voices confident. One of them was the same man who had stood outside the burning barn long ago. His hair had more gray now, but she recognized him instantly. Her hands tightened around her cup, but she stayed calm. She listened as they spoke about new drilling operations and profits from off-world buyers. They mentioned expansion toward the hills, the same area where her scanners once showed strange energy readings. That confirmed her suspicions. Later that night, she returned to her temporary shelter and opened a small portable console. Advanced software scanned old satellite data. Slowly, hidden patterns appeared. Energy spikes matched the exact night of the fire years ago. It had not been natural. The fire had been triggered by underground drilling. Her chest felt heavy, but she pushed emotion aside. She needed proof, not anger. The next day, she visited the stables and met a young boy named Tomas. He struggled to control a nervous hover horse. Ilara approached slowly and showed him how to calm the animal by adjusting its balance settings and speaking gently. "You're good at this," Tomas said, smiling. She shrugged. "Animals understand honesty." The boy talked freely, telling her about how things changed after the big fire. Many families lost land. Some left the colony. The council promised progress, but life became harder for ordinary ranchers. His words strengthened her resolve. This was bigger than her own story. As days passed, she continued gathering information. She hacked old communication towers and downloaded hidden files. Each discovery revealed deeper corruption. The council had secretly signed deals with powerful corporations, trading land for advanced mining rights. One evening, while repairing a damaged fence far from town, she felt eyes watching her. She turned slowly and saw a man standing near a rock formation. It was one of the ranchers who betrayed her. His gaze narrowed as he studied her face. "Have we met?" he asked. Alara lowered her head slightly. "I don't think so." He stepped closer, suspicious. She felt tension rise but remained calm. Years of training helped her control her breathing. "You look familiar," he said. Before he could move closer, a sudden alarm sounded from his wrist device, calling him back to town. He hesitated, then walked away, still looking over his shoulder. Alara knew her time was limited. That night she left a small symbol carved into an old wooden post near the town entrance, a mark she once used as a child. People who remembered her might recognize it. The reaction spread quickly. Whispers filled the market the next morning. "Did you hear? Someone left Alara's mark. She died in the fire." "Maybe not." Fear mixed with hope among the people. The council reacted differently. Security patrols increased. Drones scanned the area more often. They were afraid. Alara watched everything carefully from the shadows. She felt a strange mix of sadness and strength. Returning home had been harder than she imagined, but it also reminded her why she came back. Late one evening, she climbed the same hill where she first stood after returning. Below her, lights flickered across the prairie. Somewhere in that town were people who had betrayed her and others who needed help. She thought about revenge. The idea came easily, but she pushed it away. Destroying them would not heal the colony. Truth would. As she turned to leave, she noticed a small group of ranchers watching her from a distance. They did not approach, but they nodded respectfully before leaving. The legend of the ghost rider had begun, and with it, hope. Alara looked toward the horizon, feeling the wind against her face. She was no longer the girl trapped in a burning barn. She had returned stronger, patient, and ready. The past was waking up. And soon the whole colony would know she was alive. The wind moved slowly across the prairie, carrying dust and quiet whispers of change. Alara stood beside her small camp outside town, watching the rising sun paint the sky gold and red. The colony was waking up, but so was something deeper, hope mixed with fear. The rumors about the ghost rider had spread far. Some believed she was only a traveler helping people. Others said she was a spirit returned from the fire. Alara listened to the stories without correcting them. The mystery protected her. But danger was growing too. Security drones now hovered more often above the fields. Council guards traveled in pairs. Someone was searching for her. She checked her console again, studying the files she had stolen from hidden networks. The data showed energy drilling far below the prairie. Deep tunnels stretched under multiple ranches, draining resources from the land. The fire years ago had covered up an accident during illegal testing. Her stomach tightened. They had nearly killed her just to hide their mistake. Still, she knew exposing them would not be easy. The council controlled most communication systems. People needed proof they could not ignore. Alara decided she could not work alone anymore. That afternoon, she rode toward a small ranch owned by Myra, an older woman who had lost her land shortly after the fire. Myra had once been her parents' friend. Alara hesitated before approaching, unsure if she would be recognized. Myra stepped outside, eyes sharp despite her age. "You don't look like someone lost," she said calmly. "I'm looking for truth," Alara replied. Something in her voice made Myra pause. She studied Alara's face carefully, searching past the hat and shadows. "Come inside," Myra said quietly. Inside the house, old memories surrounded her. Photos of better days hung on the walls. Alara felt emotion rise but stayed focused. She showed Myra parts of the evidence, energy readings, and land transfers. The older woman listened silently. "I knew something was wrong," Myra whispered. "They pushed many of us out after that fire." Alara hesitated before speaking again. "I survived," she said softly. Myra's eyes widened, tears filled them slowly. "Alara," she nodded. For a moment, silence filled the room, then Myra pulled her into a tight embrace. "I thought you were gone forever." Alara felt warmth she had not allowed herself to feel for years, but time was short. Together, they began contacting other ranchers who had lost land unfairly. Some were afraid at first, but when they heard her story and saw the evidence, their fear slowly turned into determination. A small alliance formed quietly. They met at night, sharing stories of loss and betrayal. Each person added another piece to the truth: hidden contracts, threatening messages, sudden fires or accidents that forced families to leave. Alara realized she had never been the only target. Meanwhile, in town, the council grew more nervous. One of the men who had seen her earlier insisted that the ghost rider was Alara. Others dismissed him, but they increased surveillance anyway. One evening, while Alara repaired a damaged water system for a farmer, security vehicles appeared unexpectedly. Lights flashed across the field. "Stop!" a voice shouted. Alara's heart raced. She mounted her hover horse and rode toward open prairie. Energy beams scanned behind her as drones chased overhead. The chase moved fast across glowing grass under the dark sky. She guided her mount through narrow paths and rocky terrain, using skills Rowan had taught her. Finally, she reached a canyon where signals became weak, allowing her to escape. Breathing hard, she realized the council was closing in. The next day, she returned to Mara's ranch and gathered her allies. "We don't have much time," she said. "We must reveal everything soon." "But how?" one rancher asked. "They control the broadcasts." Alara thought carefully. "There is one moment when everyone watches the same signal," she said slowly. "The annual gathering." The colony's yearly festival brought all citizens together. Speeches, announcements, celebrations, and live broadcasts across every screen. If she could expose the truth there, the council could not hide it. Still, doubt touched her heart. Facing them openly meant revealing herself fully. That night she walked alone under the stars. Memories of the fire returned, the heat, the betrayal, the feeling of being abandoned. She wondered if she was ready. A familiar ship landed quietly nearby. Rowan stepped out, older but smiling. "I thought you might need backup," he said. Seeing him again brought unexpected relief. She told him everything: the alliances, the evidence, her plan. "You've come far," Rowan said, "but remember why you returned." "Not for revenge," she replied. "For justice." He nodded. The next days passed quickly. Preparations continued. Tomas, the stable boy, helped secretly by spreading messages among younger riders. Many wanted change. One evening, Alara gathered the group and finally removed her hat, showing her face clearly. Gasps filled the room. "It's time," she said. Hope and fear mixed in their eyes. Later that night, council guards raided one of the ranches, searching for her. Someone had betrayed them or guessed her location. Alara barely escaped through a hidden path. The danger made her realize she could not wait longer. The annual gathering was only 2 days away. Standing once more on the hill overlooking the colony, Alara felt the weight of everything that had happened. She was no longer the girl who worked quietly on her family ranch. She was stronger, shaped by survival and truth. The prairie wind moved around her like an old friend. Soon, everyone would know she had returned. And when the truth rose from the ashes, nothing in the colony would remain the same. The day of the annual gathering arrived. The colony square was alive with activity. Children ran between stalls, merchants shouted their goods, and music echoed from hovering instruments above the plaza. Banners of the council fluttered in the wind. To the untrained eye, everything looked normal, bright, and cheerful. But Alara knew better. Behind the laughter, the council's power loomed. They watched from the central platform, confident in their control. Most of the colony had no idea what had happened years ago, no idea the fire that destroyed lives was deliberate. And most had never seen the ghost rider, the mysterious figure who had quietly aided the weak, in person. Alara adjusted her hat, hiding her face until the last moment. Beside her, Mara, Tomas, and the small group of allied ranchers moved quietly. Every one of them carried evidence: digital logs, stolen contracts, energy scans, even hidden footage from old surveillance drones. She took a deep breath. Today was the day. The crowd gathered as the council began their speech. The head of the council, a tall man with sharp eyes named Varen, smiled at the citizens, speaking of progress and prosperity. He praised himself and his allies for keeping the colony safe. Alara stepped forward. At first, no one noticed her. She moved with calm purpose, letting the sun illuminate her face, letting the wind carry her presence across the square. Then she removed her hat. Gasps echoed through the crowd. Faces turned. Whispers rippled like waves. "It's her," someone murmured. "Alara, she's alive." She stood tall, every eye on her now. Varen's smile faltered. He took a step back, suddenly unsure. Alara raised her voice so everyone could hear. I survived the fire. I know what really happened that night, and I know who tried to take everything from me and from you. She motioned to her allies, who began displaying holographic evidence above the crowd. Contracts, energy readings, and documents floated in midair. Lines of code and satellite scans proved the council had started the fire to cover illegal mining and seize land. The public screens flickered with images of scorched fields, burnt barns, and families who had lost everything. People gasped. Some covered their mouths in shock, some stared in disbelief. Alara continued, I am not here for revenge, I am here for justice. The council believed they could erase truth, but the truth cannot be hidden. Varen stepped forward, his voice loud but shaking. This is false. These are lies. You are only trying to disrupt our colony. Alara shook her head. The records are real. The witnesses are here. You cannot silence the past anymore. From the crowd, Myra stepped forward and spoke calmly. I lost my land because of your schemes. I almost lost my family. But thanks to Alara, we have proof. This is justice. Other ranchers joined, holding documents and evidence, showing the corruption that had spread like a shadow over the colony. Citizens whispered and murmured, realizing they had been deceived. Varen looked around, panic rising in his eyes. The people no longer obeyed without question. Rumors of the ghost rider were real, alive in the flesh, standing before them, demanding truth. Alara took another step forward. Her voice carried across the plaza, calm but strong. Those who betrayed the prairie and the people will be held accountable. The land will be returned to its rightful owners. The colony will thrive not because of fear, but because of truth, courage, and unity. A few security guards stepped forward, hesitant. They glanced at the evidence. Slowly, some lowered their weapons, realizing they could not defend lies. Varen clenched his fists. He looked around, realizing the crowd was no longer with him. Citizens stepped closer to support Alara. Children waved small flags, families nodded. Tomas, standing beside her, looked up with admiration and pride. For the first time, Alara felt a heavy weight lift from her shoulders. Years of planning, waiting, and fear finally led to this moment. Varen and his closest allies were escorted from the square by neutral citizens and remaining loyal security. Their power crumbled under the truth. People cheered, not for Alara, but for justice reclaimed. After the gathering, Alara walked through the colony streets. People approached her quietly, some with gratitude, some with apology. Many were too young to remember the fire, but they had seen its effects through her evidence. She arrived at the hill overlooking her old ranch. Time had changed it. Structures had been rebuilt, but the scars of the past remained. Yet now she had the chance to restore what was hers, not just land, but the spirit of the prairie itself. Alara began organizing repairs, teaching new ranchers about sustainable practices and responsible technology. She combined old cowboy traditions with the lessons she learned during her survival. Her hover horse galloped freely across open fields, and young ranchers followed, inspired by her determination. Mara and other allies joined, helping restore homes and fields. Tomas ran with energy, helping wherever he could, learning from Alara. The prairie began to bloom with life and hope. One evening, after a long day of work, Alara stood alone on the hill. The sunset painted the sky in fiery colors, reminding her of the fire that had once tried to destroy her. She touched the pendant around her neck, a small piece of charred wood from the barn she had escaped, a symbol of survival. She smiled softly, feeling the peace she had long sought. The ghost rider was no longer a shadow. She was alive, present, and leading the colony into a better future. The prairie stretched endlessly, golden grass waving in the wind, bathed in the glow of the setting sun. Alara took a deep breath, knowing the past was behind her and the future was hers to protect. She mounted her hover horse and rode across the fields. Children watched in awe, families waved, ranchers nodded in respect. She no longer needed to hide or fight alone. The prairie had healed just as she had, and for the first time in many years, Alara felt whole. The wind carried her hair, the distant hills glowed softly, and she rode toward a future built on truth, courage, and hope. A prairie reclaimed, a life reclaimed, and a story that would be remembered for generations. The ghost rider was gone. But Alara, the girl who survived the fire and returned, remained alive, strong, and ready to guide the prairie toward a new dawn. The end.